Okay, hello and welcome everyone to another live event. This one is going to be a great one. It's a Sales Masterclass, how to close more business using Microsoft Teams. We've got a guest presenter, which is going to be fantastic. The first time we've done that. Thanks everyone for joining. Just to introduce myself, my name is Stuart Ambler. I'm the Business Development Manager here at Managed IT Experts. The webinar or the live event itself is going to be roughly an hour long, maybe a little bit less. We will have Q&A open throughout, so you will see the Q&A section open. Feel free to post any questions. I'll be monitoring that throughout the event, and we'll answer as and when they come through, or if there's a lot, we'll address a bunch of them at the end. The event itself will be recorded, so if you do miss the event, it will be recorded and posted on our YouTube channel, and we'll also send out a link to all the attendees who registered as well. So don't worry if you miss the actual live part of the event. If you do have any questions surrounding ourselves or the event, then please feel free to email me directly, which is stuart@manageditexperts.co.uk. So moving on and introducing our guest presenter, Ian Swanston is a sales coach with the company Closers. He has over 30 years experience across different industries, focuses on business sales and strategy and execution. He's a trusted advisor to CEOs, helping them grow their business. Hello, Ian.
Hey, how are you, Stuart?
Not too bad, not too bad. How's yourself?
Very good, thank you. Very good.
Fantastic. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass you over to Ian, who's going to take you through his presentation, and then I'll swing back to myself to go through some more information in terms of the technological side of Teams. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen just now, Ian, if you want to share yours.
Brilliant. Just bear with me, everybody, if you don't mind. Just while this is coming up, a couple of things I'd just like to know. If we don't get to answer all the questions during this this session, please feel free to contact Stuart and relay any questions via Stuart back to me, and we'll do our best to answer them after the webinar via email, or you're welcome to telephone even, if that would be of help for you. The second thing would be that I'm going to be probably going at 100 miles an hour here, so I apologise in advance for rushing through this. But again, if you've got any questions, I'm more than happy to try and help with you afterwards. So a couple of things that I would maybe like you to think about. So 500 million, 30 million and 79%. What's all that about? 500 million is the number of PowerPoint users in the world. 30 million is the number of PowerPoint presentations created every single day. 79% is the number of people that think presentations are boring. So if you just think about those numbers, I think it's really difficult to stand out, to be different, to get your message across, given the sheer volume of presentations that people are experiencing. And I think the lockdowns made that problem probably a little bit bigger, because more people are using online things like Teams and Zoom to deliver their presentations. And again, I think it's difficult to stand out. Just as we move on, a couple of things I would like to maybe try and get you to think about. So, what are the problems that you're currently experiencing? People want some sort of short, punchy introduction. How do they read the body language? How can they read the room? There's probably a number of things. And again, you're more than welcome to type these in the Q&A. And Stuart, can I ask you to, if there's any issues there, if you could just relay them to me?
Yeah, of course. I'll be monitoring the Q&A through, and I'll just let you know if any come through.
Brilliant. So maybe the first thing I'd like you to think about is that what would the purpose of a presentation be? And for me, many people can be mixed up about this. And what I mean by that is that most people are using a presentation to potentially close a sale, maybe to move a deal forward, maybe to try and convince people that get some sort of message across, and that's great. However, right, presentations take time to prepare properly for. Right, they take a lot of time to execute, and I would actually, a lot of our clients come to us with presentation problems, but the reality is that that's not the real problem that they have. There's underlying problems, and what I mean by that is that most people are, what I would describe as, they see the presentation as an essential part of the sales process. They see it as a way, without getting a presentation, they're never going to get an order. They see it as a way of getting closer to the order, and quite frankly, that is not true. If you do not give a presentation, the presentation police will not swoop down in the night and arrest you. Prospects are not entitled to a presentation. They earn presentations by sharing with us certain amounts of information. And from our experience, a lot of people are rushing to the presentation stage without having done what we would call proper discovery. And again, I know most people say, well, I ask all these questions. I ask them, what's the budget? I ask them what sort of time it is they're looking at. I completely get that. However, right, presentations are not an essential part of the sales process. I couldn't tell you the last time I gave a presentation. I don't like giving presentations. I don't want to give presentations. Excuse me. And when you're selling to big companies, right, there is no requirement to give a presentation as long as you tell them that. Most people struggle, right, to control the conversation. So when they're asked for a presentation, they don't know how to respond other than with, okay, when would you like the presentation? Now, if somebody was to ask me for a presentation, I can control the conversation quite easily by saying, that's great, Stuart, we'd love to give you a presentation. However, would it make sense before we did that presentation, if we could spend a couple of minutes to talk about the sort of things that you'd like to see in that presentation? Would that make sense? Now,
Yeah.
I've never had anybody say, no, Ian, that's a stupid idea. I don't want to talk about what needs to go in the presentation. They say they agree because it does make perfect sense. So by simply controlling the conversation, it makes us much easier. It makes it much easier for us to avoid the presentation trap, which is essentially a beauty parade, and typically doesn't. It's less likely to move us forward because it's more likely to generate questions that they've maybe not even thought of. So my suggestion would be there is no requirement to give a presentation. Now, most people are doing it to position themselves to share information. So typically what happens, now if you don't have a sales process, you'll end up falling into this trap. If you do have a sales process, the danger is that you may be following this. And the biggest problem is that the buyers recognize this process. So the seller starts off, there's two sides to any transaction. The seller is asking these leading questions. Excuse me, if I could show you a way, what sort of budget have you set aside for this? And the buyer immediately recognizes these sales questions because they hear them all the time. Now, typically when the salesman gets past that, they will recognize some sort of buying signals. Well, yes, we've got a problem with this and we're trying to fix this. And what they get is they develop what we call PPS, premature presentation syndrome, and they rush to present. Now, if I could ask you to think about your own, when you go and visit the doctor, does the doctor sit you down and say to you, look, make yourself comfortable. I've got a very, very good presentation here on amoxicillin. I'm just going to flick through it and then we'll decide the next steps at the end. The doctor never does that. The doctor focuses 80 to 90% of his time diagnosing your condition. So for salespeople, if we are not spending that 80% of the time with the customer diagnosing their condition, basically in the same way as if we did that as a doctor, it's malpractice. You can never ask enough questions. You can never spend enough time in the diagnosis, right? And in effect, you're qualifying them as you go through that. So don't rush to that presentation. Typically, what you'll find is that when you do rush to that presentation, right, nothing happens at the end of it. You know, you're basically told hurry up, and then I want the presentation, I want the presentation, and then nothing happens after it. After the presentation, when they do if they do re-engage, you have to justify everything that's in the presentation. You know, and that's, you know, I'm sure you find, you know, like our other customers, you know, that may seem expensive, but when you talk to other people with similar problems to you, Mr. Customer, you'll find there's great value for money. When the salesperson's in that justify mode, they're on the back foot. And then inevitably they have to go into what we call chase mode. Telephone, email, telephone, email. Now, if we think of the other side of the transaction from the buyer's perspective, the buyer can smell a salesman a mile away. And the minute that you start to ask these obviously salesy questions, the buyer will lie. Because not that they're bad people, it's because they want to protect themselves from being sold to. Nearly every one of us, I would venture, at some stage, walked into a shop at the weekend to purchase something. The assistant comes up and says, "Hi, can I help you at all?" And we lied and said, "No thanks, I'm just browsing." We lie to protect ourselves, and you know, it's a natural human condition. It's nothing to be critical of the buyer, right? It just means that we've not spent that time to build true rapport. Next thing, if we move past that, when we give a presentation, we're given information. Information is power. And you know, you never give anything away without receiving something of equal or greater value in return. First rule in closer sales negotiation skills, right? So if you follow that, why are we giving a presentation without agreeing in advance what's going to happen at the end of it? And again, too often that's the case. You know, again, if you get past that where they've done, you know, basically bled you for all the information in the presentation, it may well be that they've given that information to your competition. They've shared it with people that you potentially don't want it to be shared with. Right. Next thing is, again, they're going to ignore you because they know you're trying to sell. You're trying to sell to them. And if you're lucky enough to get stuck to those stalls and objections, again, those are all just those reasons not to buy. And lastly, when you're in chase mode, that means that they've gone into disappear mode. You know, they've entered the US Witness Protection Program, right? They're in complete hide mode, and you've got no chance of tracking them down. Now, if you don't have that, if you don't have a system, the buyer will force you down the system, because this is like a game of chess, except they know your moves before you make them. Stuart, are you going to say something?
I was just going to say, Ian, just related to that, we've had a question come through, anonymous. Reading the room is a big issue I've experienced. Very difficult when doing them individually. So I'm assuming that means kind of one-to-one meetings. How would you kind of tackle that, or what's your take on that?
So nearly in sales, nearly every problem you face or we face, you know, is caused by something before where we are in the sales process. So for example, if I've got a problem reading the room, right, on a Zoom call because there's 4 people in that room, typically what I would suggest is that what did we do before that call to actually talk to those people, to engage with those people, and find out what their needs and wants were of that presentation. Mm-hmm. When we go into a presentation cold, that's when you're going to have the most difficulty reading the room, because you've had no interaction with them whatsoever before. So typically, now for those of you that are going to say, well, okay, how do I do that, Ian? Well, say, well, okay, so if somebody says to me, Ian, it'd be great to have a presentation, say, sure, love to have a presentation. However, I'm sure you don't want to arrange a presentation for you and your colleagues without actually making sure that it addresses all those needs. Is that right, Stuart?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what I'd like to do, Stuart, is I'd like to just spend 5-10 minutes at the most talking to everybody before, each of the people that's going to be in that meeting, to make sure that I understand each of their needs, and that way I can include it in the presentation, and it's going to be much more a valuable use of their time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Now, then I would obviously go away and I'd talk to these people, right, to make sure that I'm going to cover, and it's a really simple phone call, hi, George, forgive me, you don't know me. I've been talking with your colleague, Stuart, right, we're setting up a presentation, but I'm curious, when it comes to widget production, right, what's the top concerns you've got in your mind, George? And you start George. George will tell you what he's concerned about, and that's what George needs to see addressed in the presentation. And that way, we're making sure before we get to the presentation that we're going to engage them, and it makes it much easier to read the room because George is no longer a stranger. When the Zoom call starts, it says, "Hey George, how are you today?" It's not, "Hi George, nice to meet you." Now that edge may seem very small, but that edge is all I need to beat the competition. I don't need to be a mile ahead of the competition to win. I need to be an inch ahead of the competition to win. And all we're looking for is a series of edges that is going to make us look, sound, and appear better than the competition.
Of course, makes sense.
Does that help?
Yeah. I think that totally makes sense. Yeah, that's a great way to deal with it.
And I would also add, I'm sure people in the webinar are going to go, Ian, but that's difficult to get to talk to everybody. Absolutely, I understand that. Sales is difficult.
Yeah.
Sales is not an easy place to make a living. I absolutely get that. Our job, though, is to try. And if we don't try these things, it won't happen. But one thing I would urge you to think to yourself, if the person who's helping you arrange this presentation is not prepared to introduce you to people, what does that say about your relationship? What does that say about your position, their perception of you? Typically, again, it's because they might be nervous because they might be introducing you to their CEO and everything. I mean, again, there's ways to handle it. You could say, Stuart, I appreciate you might be uncomfortable talking to me talking to your CEO, but you can rest assured I do this all the time, and there is no benefit for me, Stuart, to in any way compromise you. So nothing I say or do with your CEO is going to compromise you, and more importantly, our relationship.
Yeah, it's good having that reassurance, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's just about making sure that we've got the right words. We've got the right words now. Who do we get to attend the presentation? Typically, you want to make sure they've got, excuse me, what we call the user buyer, the white knight. White knight is someone who's going to help you navigate and also has the power and influence. A technical buyer is somebody who's going to make sure that there's a technical fit between what you're supplying or selling, proposing to supply, and their existing systems. So as a real basic level, if you were, I don't know, if you're selling construction equipment, is it 110 volt or is it 240 volt construction equipment? The technical buyer is going to be evaluating, does it have the British standard kite mark on it? Does it meet the European standards or whatever? They're evaluating it from a technical perspective. Financial buyer, as you would expect, it's about the whole life costs, return on investment sort of thing. User buyer, it's going to be about, the people that are actually they're going to be using your product. So if we take Stuart's business, for example, it's, what's the user experience of people using Microsoft Teams? Is it a good one? Is it a bad one? How does it compare to their existing? They may be transitioning off Skype for Business. or any other platform, Google Meet or whatever. And Vito, the very important top officer, Vito is not the CEO or the managing director, although it may be. It's just the person that's heading up that buying project. Now, they may not call it a buying project, but it's a project, and it's the person that's leading on that project. Now, our challenge in sales is that sometimes or often one person can fit in more than one of these boxes, but our job is to help uncover those salespeople because it's going to make the presentation so much easier. The presentation, right, should only be confirming what's gone on before. Too many times we're relying on the presentation to convince. It should only be confirming. If they're not sold before they get in the presentation, right, it's going to be a tough job. And another thing that you may want to think about is that if the content of the presentation is designed to convince people and it is so good, why would we hold that content back until the presentation? Should that content not be shared earlier on in the sales process? Should that content not be on our website? If it's so good and so powerful, why are we keeping it back? Now, it may well be that you're going to customize it, and I get that. I've got no issue with that whatsoever. Right, however, right, the work. If we're relying on a presentation to convince people to buy, my fear is we're already on the wrong path, right? It should only be confirming. They should already be bought into the whole, the concept. And what we're doing is we're just ticking off the dotting the I's and crossing the T's, so to speak. Any more questions on that, Stuart, from from the Q&A?
Not at the moment, no.
Okay, doc. Consultative sales framework. This is the way to structure your presentation, every part of your conversation. Most people, when they talk to a prospect on any form of customer, they're talking about the symptoms. Now, too often the salesperson hears the symptoms and thinks, "Oh, we can solve that. We've solved that a million times before," and they rush to present. Now, in reality, they're going too fast for the buyer, and they need to slow down. Now, it doesn't matter that they're 100% right. The onus here is the focus here should be on the buyer. And what needs to happen is that we need to speed the sale up. We need to slow the sale down. So just very quickly, right, as we talk about the symptoms, we need to move on and do what we call a root cause analysis to make sure that we're addressing the underlying cause of those problems. And once we know what the root cause is, we need to understand, well, how is that impacting your business, Mr. Customer? If it is impacting the business, there'll be a financial cost to that impact. Any price that we give them before we work out what the cost of the impact is going to be too expensive. And the last one is the emotional cost. Now, the difference here is if you just move that conversation round, at the end, they will give you the order. You never need to ask for the order. They will say things, okay, what do we do now to get started, Stuart? And it makes your life so much easier. So if you just structure your questions so that you're following that process, and you know what, it's okay to share the process with the customer. Be 100% honest and upfront. Say, look, you've probably got some sort of symptoms. I'm keen to understand what those are. But what's more important is that we then work out what's the underlying cause of those. And once we know that, I'm keen to understand how is that affecting your business? Is there any impact on your business, Mr. Customer? And just by we can use this to control the conversation and guide them. I appreciate this is very fast, so I apologize. We're going at 1,000,000 miles an hour. So let's pretend, right, we've done all this and we're going to go ahead with a presentation. How long is too long? 18 minutes. 18 minutes is the optimum time for a presentation. Why is it 18 minutes? Because Ted tells me so. Who's Ted? TEDx. If you ever watch TEDx presentations, they make them no longer than 18 minutes. So TEDx, you're more than welcome to look them up. It's the most common sort of thought leadership platform for speakers. Visual images are processed 60,000 times faster in your brain than text. So make sure that you're not reading a slide full of text, and be open to including video. Right? Make sure that it's got some really good graphics on there rather than text. Consumers are up to 85% more likely to buy a product or service after watching a video. So as I said, use more video in your presentations. 55% of people say a great story is primarily what holds their focus during an presentation. So I'm sure most people on the call won't know that Babe the Pig and Mad Max have the same story formula.
Really?
Now, it's so powerful that if you're a Hollywood writer and you want money from the producers to create a film, unless your story follows a certain process, you won't get funding. So Babe the Pig, Mad Max, there's quite a few others. I think Karate Kid, some of the ones with I can't remember the ones, the elf ones. What was the elf ones that was popular a few years ago? With it Gollum, the ring.
Oh, Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings, that's the one. It follows the same. Thank you. That follows the same process. So if you want to learn what that story process is, if you just search for Story Brand, a guy called Donald Miller got some great information, and again, he's got some great videos on how to turn your product or service into a story to make it more engaging. Story Brand, STORYBRAND, one word, and the gentleman's name's Donald Miller. 35% of millennials say they will only engage with content they feel is a great story or theme. So, again, I would urge you to look at that story. Where can you turn your product or service or company into a story? 64% of people believe that flexible presentation with two-way interaction is more engaging than a linear presentation. So this hasn't really been flexible with two-way interaction because we're dealing with multiple people on the other end. It's really difficult. Presentations, ideally you want to be doing 1 to maybe 4 people, and then you can include them. And I would urge you, if you look at what we've done here, do not use do not just do a standard PowerPoint. You can use a whiteboard like this, and you can type in any answers that your people give you. You can ask them questions and be typing answers, and immediately, only that, although it's not much, it feels that they're involved. It feels that they're involved in this. And again, it's really easy to do this. There are much more powerful whiteboarding tools than this one. This one's just easy because it's so simple, and we don't have to train the participants at the other end on how to use it. So 65% of people are more easily persuaded by presentations that incorporate two-way interaction. Sorry, I just covered that. So just to summarize, no talking heads. Break up your PowerPoints with video, with PowerPoints, with videos and whiteboards. Stop offering presentations. I never offer presentations, and strangely enough, people very rarely ask, because we can structure the sales conversation in a way that they don't feel that they need a presentation. If you are doing presentations, please ensure that they are customer centric, so they're focused on the customer. I don't want anything in there about, what is it about you, who is, a bunch of brands that you've sold to in the past, right? All about your team. People are I-centric psychologically, which means it's got to be about them. Always use stories, and where possible, get your prospects to interact. Start with the mystery there. the mystery here that we started today was, if you remember, I think it was 500 million, 30 million, and 75%. And people are immediately going, what are those numbers? What does that mean? What's this about? So immediately it catches their attention and catches their eye. Forgive me, my time's up, Stuart. That's bang on 30 minutes.
Keep going. You're absolutely fine.
So, well, all I would do to summarise is that, you know, if there's any questions you've got, because I really do apologise for going through this at a million miles an hour, but if you have any questions, please, you can either contact me direct on LinkedIn or reach out to me via Stuart, and we'll do our best to answer any questions that you've got.
Yeah, no problem. Do you have it's not so much questions, it's more just kind of comments. Great insight, will definitely help moving forward. Thanks. And that was from Scott Thorne. So yeah, fantastic insight there. Thanks very much for that, Ian.
Thank you, Scott.
So the next stage of this live event then is a demo from myself, and obviously Ian covered off a lot of information in terms of the kind of selling techniques and the techniques of how to present, and some really fantastic insights. But what I'm going to focus on is the technology behind that, and the technology behind the kind of sales process. And I'm just going to share my screen again. And the way I'm going to do that is by essentially demoing our internal process, and how we use Microsoft Teams and Microsoft 365 as a whole through our sales process. So the technology that supports the sales process itself. And everything I'll talk about will be within the Microsoft 365 family. So that covers everything within Office 365, Dynamics, and other applications. So everything you see will be within that. And people obviously will be thinking, you know, why Microsoft 365? There's a whole load of other alternative applications, alternative cloud suites that are available. Why go for Microsoft 365? And for us, the reason we went down this route was the seamless integration between all the different applications that they're currently offering, and the fact that Microsoft 365 or Microsoft itself is still standard for most businesses. It's most small businesses use Microsoft and Microsoft products as their main work and business applications. So for a compatibility standpoint, it makes sense. But Microsoft themselves invested billions of dollars over the last few years, really improving and adding to their whole cloud offering, and everything that they do. And Teams has been a great kind of pinnacle of what they're doing in terms of collaboration tools and integration. And you can see all the benefits that are listed there on the slide. So yeah, Microsoft 365 is the one that we would recommend. But we're going to focus specifically on Teams and the integration around Teams. So if you just bear with me, I'll pull up our process. So look. Okay, so where we are in this process is that essentially we went through the lead generation stage, we've went through warming up the lead, passing them as much kind of content and doing as much content marketing, focusing on that account and that contact themselves, really warming them up, getting them to know our name and our business and what we've done. We've introduced ourselves, we've identified a need and a requirement, a possible requirement. And so now we're at the stage where we are going to book them in for a more in-depth technology business review. So we're going to have a meeting with them, which is going to gather as much possible information and gather requirements around this project. Okay, and the example we're using here is a Power Apps project. Okay. And how this starts is we send out an email which has a link for them to use an app called bookings. So that's something that we use internally. It's called bookings, and it allows the client to book an appointment at their leisure and book an appointment with myself or with another member of staff at their leisure and what suits them. Gives them access to our diaries essentially. And how that looks, if I can just pull up the right pages, they'll click on that link. It will take them through to this page, and they'll then be able to pick what date suits them. You can see here that this is linked up to my calendar, so you can see that there's certain time slots not available on certain days when my diary is busy or when I already have things booked in. You can see most of my Fridays, the Fridays are booked off because that's the day I use for doing my paperwork and catching up. Obviously, paperwork, not really paperwork, but admin. We'll call it admin. I don't think I've used a piece of paper since I've started working for managed IT, which is great. So, yeah, so they can pick which date suits them, which time. You can pick a time slot. They've got the information there. They type in their name and they type in their email. So we'll use my email as an example here, and I'll just show you what this process then does automatically. There we go. Put that for 1:30 next Tuesday. So that will then book on the calendar. They'll get a confirmation email, and I'll just show you exactly what happens from the customer's perspective. So they'll then get an automatic email that will come through with the calendar invite there. That'll also have the link to join the online meeting, so they can accept that. They can also use that email and that link that they've been sent out to reschedule or cancel or manage the booking in any way, shape or form. And as a staff member, I'll then receive a notification saying that Stuart Ambler's booked an appointment with me, and that will automatically be added to my calendar as well, and then I can join the appointment when the time comes, or I can use the calendar and the calendar entry that's been created for me to join the appointment on Teams. Okay, and that's just a little bit of it's a small application. It's very easy to use, very simple to use. I'll bring up the actual page here so you can see it's very easy to edit and understand. You can add staff, you can add services, you can change, so if there's multiple staff members in the team that could take the appointment, then you can add each staff member, and then the customer can choose which one they want to book with. And it's all very easy to manage, very simple to use, and it's part of a Microsoft 365 business license, so you can get that as well. What that then leads us to is the process of when we're actually on Teams. So they've booked the appointment, we've went through and we've done our needs requirement gathering. So we've gathered the needs and their pain points, their issues, the needs of the actual project itself, all the information we need to then produce a proposal, or if need be a presentation. But we tend not to do kind of presentations. It tends to go from gathering that information. These meetings usually give us a whole lot of information and lets us build a whole lot of rapport. And sometimes it's over multiple meetings. Sometimes we can't do it in the one meeting, it's over multiple meetings, and it helps us build that relationship with the client or with the prospect. It helps them get to know us as a business and how we operate, how we do things, and it gives us that time to really build that rapport with the prospect, as Ian was alluding to earlier. And from there, that then brings us into our internal process. So here we are. We've created a team to do with this specific account and this specific opportunity. I've added to the team the people that need to be involved in this process, so the people who need to be involved from the technical point of view, because obviously I'll deal with the sales side of things and I'll deal with the commercial side of things, but I'll need the technical requirements looked at and reviewed and created in terms of the requirements documents from our technical team. In this instance, I've roped in Richard to help me, who's been a guinea pig kind of posting this stuff for me on this test demo. And what we tend to do is we add tabs at the top, which then help us integrate with the other applications we use, most within the Microsoft 365 platform, some out with, or one of them out with, where we actually share the the proposal with the client, a software piece of online software called ShareKits. But most of the software and applications we use here are within Microsoft 365. So this test account here is actually our window straight into our Microsoft Dynamics, which is our CRM. And this is where we manage the account. This is where we manage the account details, the contact, everything to do with that company, as well as the opportunity itself. So what I'll tend to do is I'll create the opportunity on Dynamics, which will hold all the key opportunity information. So this will be the actual sales process, where we've been in terms of the meeting, where we are in terms of the actual the process itself, so that we've then got an overview in terms of all our opportunities, where we are, which ones need to be pushed to the next stage, which ones we've still to meet with, still to create proposals for, which ones are ready to close, and it really helps us gather that information. This will also hold all the information in terms of the commercial side of things, the cost, whether or not it was a new sale, or if it was a client sale that we've upsold, LinkedIn information from the company member and profile, the internal quotes, which will then go to the invoice, and also things like documents, which will be the customer proposal and any other pertinent documents that are to do with this opportunity. The great thing is that it also gives us a timeline and gives us a score in terms of the engagement from that opportunity. So with this being a test one, or a kind of demo one, it's not a real opportunity, so it's not real details. It's difficult to kind of show exactly what the kind of benefits are from this point of view. But what you would see here is all the communication that are coming in and out to do with that specific opportunity, because we can track it all through Outlook, which then integrates with Dynamics, and as you can see, is directly within the Teams window. So I can see all the emails that are coming in and out, and they're all in one place. I don't have to go searching for my emails. It's all here in one application. I can also see here, it will help me if I've maybe not spoke to them in a while. Maybe there's things that need to be changed in terms of the pipeline phase. It's bringing that down. So it gives me a score and gives me little indications here as to what needs to be improved. So it's a really kind of fantastic business application, very powerful business application. It gives you a lot of meaningful information and data to help you push along your opportunities and deal with your opportunities effectively. And that's all within one, as I say, window. So this just seamlessly integrates. You just add the tab up at the top here, and you can then select Dynamics, or if it's a specific website, you can do that as well. Okay. What I'll also do in creation of this team is I'll create a demo plan. A plan. Through plan, I just called it demo plan because it's a demo. But I'll create a plan with tasks for people who essentially are involved. So we've got here Richard, he's got tasks. He needs to create the requirements document and post that, which he's done. So Richard can then tick that off. And then that will show that it's completed, and I can see all the completed tasks that he's done. I've got my tasks in terms of I need to review the requirements document. I need to create the proposal, and I need to get the customer to sign off on the requirements document to make sure they're happy that all that's there and all that information is correct before I actually create the proposal. And then finally, the MD, he's got the task of having to sign off on the proposal, the estimate, and the requirements to make sure that everything's okay and have that almost third-party glance over everything, because when you're doing these things, you can get too close, you might miss simple details. So it's good having someone just come in and have a quick glance over it, make sure it's all okay before that then gets sent out. So these are all created automatically once I add that plan, add the tasks, and it's assigned to each individual without me having to leave this. I don't have to go and send multiple emails. I mean, this would be 4 separate emails to get them to ask them to do these things, to ask them to check up on it, updates, etc., etc. I don't have to do all that. It's all here. I can see if people have done the tasks or not, and I can see what stage everything's at. We also have on here, so if I just go back to the posts, I can see here that obviously Richard's tagged me in that post saying that he's put the documents, that the requirements document on. So I can then go into the files. I can open it from that link as well, but I can go into the files here. I can see the document. And I'll just open it up so it's a bit easier to see. Just bear with me. Oops. There we go. So I can see the document here. I can review this, go through all the information, make sure it's correct in terms of what we gathered from the requirements document, from the requirements meeting. I can make sure that there's nothing missed from my point of view, from the commercial point of view, because this is a very technical document that lists all the kind of technical aspects of the process and the project. But I can also look at it from the kind of commercial point of view. I can then add comments. I can maybe make changes. I can make amendments, and everything I do, all the changes I make are all automatically updated into that Teams document, so that Richard can see that. And if Richard was to jump onto this document as well, maybe we're in a meeting, in a Teams meeting, we're discussing it, he can jump into this document just now as well. I'll be able to see him, I'll be able to see what he's doing. We'll be able to kind of work on and collaborate on the document effectively without having any issues of version control, because we're all working off the same document, so we don't have to worry about, I've got one copy, he's got another copy, we make different changes, then we need to put two copies together. It's all just working off the one document. I can see everything that's happening here. We're making live changes, so it's live amendments that we're doing. And it just makes collaborating, especially working remotely, like everyone's doing now, a lot easier. I don't have to go face to face and then we sit and crowd around a computer, social distancing and all that. We're working remotely, I'm working at home, Richard's up in the office. We can both sit and work on it as if we're sitting right next to each other. So it's a really fantastic way to work. Just flicking back to the Teams channel. So we've went through the business requirements. I've reviewed it. It all looks okay. I'm going to jump into the plan. I'm going to review and complete that task. We'll just pretend that I've sent it out and the customer's signed off, and then I'm ready for me to create the proposal. Again, we'll just say that I have, so we've created that. Richard's also generated his estimate and provided that for me for the proposal. I can then meet with David and we can sit and go through the documents, have a glance over, and then David can sign off on that and tick that. Or if David's not been available for meetings and I just send him the documents, he can let me know he's done that by just completing that task. And then we all get notifications saying that the task has been complete. Okay. We also have the channel here for all the recorded meetings. So we record all of our meetings that we have so that we haven't to do with that specific client. I can go back and review things in case maybe, some of these meetings, they can last an hour and a half. So it's difficult to remember every single detail. So it means that we don't have to rely on memory. We can go back, we can have a look at the meeting, we can figure out exactly what was said and ensure that all the information that we're putting in that document, which is a very important document, is accurate and there's nothing missed. So it really helps us with that. And you can also have this external link as well. So it doesn't just have to be all Microsoft 365. You can see in here that we've got an external software here that we use called, application called ShareKits. I'll just get logged in. Can't remember passwords and talk at the same time. So hopefully this will log in. And that will take us through to the proposal. This is what the client will see. So when I preview this, this is what the client will see. They'll open up and view the document. That then sends me a notification to let me know that they've opened the document, and I can see everything within it, and I can see how long they're spending on the document itself, what pages they've focused on, and it's just a little kind of proactive prompt to say client's looking at the document, and then I'll probably give them a call back the next day to discuss it and see if you had a chance to look at the document, etc. Or the proposal, is it something we can do a bit further for you? And that's pretty much everything. I mean, you know, in terms of Teams itself, it's such a powerful collaboration tool, and you don't have to stick to just Microsoft 365 products, although that's the ones that we've looked at. I mean, you can see here, this is it's an absolutely massive application store, all third parties as well. Obviously, we've got the Microsoft 365, but you can see here there is a huge amount of third parties now integrating with Microsoft Teams and third-party applications. So it really doesn't matter what software or application you're using. There's a good chance that there's an application connector or integrator that will work directly in Teams. And the whole point of this, the whole point of the doing this and Microsoft investing in this, is it means that people can do all of their work without actually having to leave Microsoft Teams. It means everything's all in the one application. There's nothing worse than having to go from, you know, put this document over here, to copy that data over there, to call someone on a different piece of software, to then come back to this, copy last, having multiple screens to do their work because they have so many different applications. There's nothing worse especially for sales staff. You know, they need to be productive. Their time is very, very limited. So having this sort of all within one, you can see there's other kind of CRMs as well. So Salesforce all works within Teams. That's really, really important because it makes staff extremely productive, saves them a lot of time, means they can still collaborate as if they were still sitting in the office, and it's just an extremely efficient way of working. So that in a nutshell, there is a lot more to it, but obviously kind of conscious of time. So that in a nutshell is how we use Microsoft Teams. Obviously kind of whistle stop tour there. I do apologise, but yeah, if you do have any questions with regards to that, I'm just going to quickly fire back onto the PowerPoint. I think get to the right page. Yep, there we are. So if you do have any questions with regards to that, just let me know. I'm just pulling up the Q&A to see if there's been any whilst I've been away. So let's have a look. So Ian, I think this is a question for yourself. It says, you mentioned before the sales meeting, if the person booking the sales appointment is different to the person setting the appointment, how much selling does that first person need to do when setting up the meeting?
Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure that I understand that question right there.
Yeah.
If the person...
Let me repeat it again. So you mentioned that you should have sold before the sales meeting. If the person booking the sales appointment is different to the person setting the appointment, how much selling does that first person need to do when setting up the meeting? So I think that means if there's a business development executive, set an appointment for a business development manager, gotcha. Should that business development executive be doing a lot of selling before that appointment sat, or should that be left to the business development manager?
So I know this sounds like a bit of a fudge, but it depends on what your sales process is. I think regardless of what your sales process is, what I would say is that you should never, whether it be a telephone appointment or an external appointment, turn up as the salesperson without having spoken to the person prior to it. So what I mean by that is, let's pretend your BD person sets an appointment for you for next Wednesday at 3 p.m. to do some form of presentation. Mm-hmm. What I would do is, before next Wednesday at 3 p.m, I'm going to ring the customer up and say, hi, Stuart, forgive me, I know you're not expecting my call, right? So straight away, I'm not, I'm going to psychologically moving them away from what we call Cartman's triangle. I'm moving them around Cartman's triangle, and what I'm doing is I'm making it so that it takes two people to fight. So by me saying apologise, and I know you're not expecting my call, they immediately can't fight with me because I've apologised already. And then what I'd say is like, what I would then say to them was, look, you've kindly enough, you've already kindly agreed to an appointment next Wednesday at 3 o'clock, right? I just wanted to ring and introduce myself beforehand, right? And then just pause, and the person will start talking, and then all you do is, you can gauge how far you go, but I would at least have a little bit of an exploratory conversation. I would say, well, look, Stuart's been kind enough to set the appointment. I'm reading the notes. Stuart has got down here that you were really concerned about this, this, and this. Have I got that right? Right, and then I would say, okay, so could you expand on that?
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm doing is I'm not selling. I'm just asking questions.
Yeah.
And again, it's so that when I actually turn up to this meeting or presentation, I don't want to go, hi, nice to meet you. My name's Ian. I want to go, hi, good to see you again, Stuart.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's all about having that little edge.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if somebody rings you up and say, hi, I've got a call booked with you for next Wednesday, I'm just doing some prep in advance, immediately this person thinks, well, this salesperson's on the ball, this person's preparing, they've got notes, that they're talking about it, they're working on it. These people are interested in me and my business.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's much more powerful than just turning up.
Definitely. No,
I hope that
makes total
helps
sense.
whoever asked.
Yeah, it just gave M. So M, I hope that helps. That totally makes sense to myself. Just one other question. This is from Scott again. This is to do with the bookings. Is that part of 365? Yes, bookings is under Microsoft 365. It's part of the business license and above. You essentially just need to, when you go into your portals, just go to portal.office.com. sign in, go to all apps on the left hand side, and you should see bookings in that apps listing, and you'll be able to go in and create a calendar and manage it from there.
Just to interrupt, and it's not my forte, but we use bookings and it's brilliant. It saves so much time and makes it so much easier for people to get hold of us. I would really encourage anybody to invest a bit of time to set that up and use it. It's just invaluable.
Yeah, we've found that as well. As soon as it's cut out all the chasing, I've found, because obviously, chasing to get nail down a date in the diary with someone, absolute nightmare. I'm sure every salesperson has dealt with that at some point. So rather than kind of put that onus of having to do that, you're putting the ball in their court, saying, here's my diary, pick a date that suits you, any time at all that suits you. It's all available there. And it just makes things so much easier, so much smoother. So yes, Scott, in answer to your question, bookings, that's part of that license there from business, Microsoft Business 365 and above. So just to obviously kind of round off the webinar, obviously conscious of time, a little bit about ourselves. So we're Microsoft Silver Partners. If you don't know who we are, we've over 15 years of experience providing proactive and IT digital support. So we support businesses with IT, but not only that, we also help them go through their digital transformation. So if you're seeing all these applications and thinking, yep, that looks great, but I've no idea how to get that or how to do that, then please feel free to get in touch. It's something we've got a huge amount of experience in, and we've been helping businesses do that, especially around Microsoft 365 for the last 4 years since it's became a really fantastic product. So feel free to get in touch with us after the webinar. Just one quick note on an upcoming live event we have, which is on the 3rd of December at 1 p.m. Really exciting. We've got obviously myself, but another 3 guest presenters, each experts in their fields. and we're going to be looking at key actions you can take in finance, legal, recruitment and IT for a strong start to 2021, which I think is something that everyone will be looking to have a strong start in 2021 after this year. So please, if you just jump on to the website, manageditexperts.co.uk, you'll find the registration page on our blog. You can also go to Google and just type in Managed IT Experts blog, and that will take you through to the page where the announcement is. So yeah, please feel free to get in touch with us. If you're struggling to find the link, we'll also be sending out emails, obviously marketing the event itself. But feel free to contact me again on stuart@manageditexperts.co.uk if you do want that registration page sent across. So thank you for your time, Ian. Thanks very much for joining us today. Really insightful.
Thank you for organising, Stuart.
Not a problem at all. Really thoroughly enjoyed the event, and obviously all the information you gave there was really insightful. I've certainly taken a couple of notes off the back of that. And thanks to all our attendees for joining there. I hope you've enjoyed the event. I have published a link to a feedback form in the Q&A. So please, it really helps us in terms of the informing what we do with these webinars and how we present them. So please take the time. It's just a couple of questions, not many, I promise. If you can please take the time just to fill that out, leave the feedback, leave your details. It's all really appreciated in terms of helping us inform these events going forward. So that's everything. So thanks very much from me, and we'll see you next time.